We have a special guest to check in.
Yeah, this is a real fascinating story. We're going to be talking to Michelle Spisz. She is a Fowlerville teacher, another teacher. She's also the WW Teacher of the Year twice for the state of Michigan, and she's a candidate for Livingston County Board of Commissioners. But we're talking to her about a very interesting thing she found out about her great uncle, who was lost during World War II. And we're gonna ask her and tell us the story. It's fascinating.
Do you have a great uncle?
Oh, I do.
I have an okay uncle.
Actually, hi Michelle. It's
Hi,
Mike and John.
John. We're talking uncles today, Michelle.
We're
and
talking.
You apparently have a great uncle, and we don't.
Actually, we're talking great uncles, and Mike just asked me as we were dialing you if I had a great uncle. And now that I say that, because we're going to be talking about your great uncle, my great uncle actually served in Patton's Third Army. He was a doctor in Patton's Third Army, fighting in Europe. So it made me think, your great uncle also fought in Europe during World War II, and unfortunately gave his life in service of fighting fascism. So tell us about this story. When did you find out about your great uncle?
I found out about my great uncle about a month and a half ago when someone reached out to me on Facebook. And they had a lot of family information asking if I was related to the family members they were mentioning.
So, yeah, why don't you take us back? Tell us this story about your great uncle and how he, came to make this sacrifice.
So my grandfather's brother really wanted to have some skin in the game back in World War II, and America was not fighting at that time. So he actually hopped the border to Canada and risked FBI capture during all of that, and he went to Canada and he signed up with the Air Force. And on November 25th of 1942, 5 Avro Lancaster aircraft left Langer Airfield in Nottinghamshire to fly a nighttime bombing mission over Germany. 3 of those aircraft safely returned. 2 of them did not, including one that my great uncle was on, which was reported as lost without a trace. So the 8 men that were serving on that aircraft were never found. But of course, as a family member, we never forget those that gave all. Yeah. So we are working together. There's a member of each family, a relative of each family, that is working together to make sure that we can get these heroes remembered. We're working to make sure that the crash site is identified, that it's marked as a war grave, and that the brave men receive heroes' honors.
Yeah, we should set the scene again, as you said, when your great uncle and how do you pronounce his last name?
Gouchard.
So James Louis Gouchard.
Gouchard.
Yeah,
yes,
Gouchard. Okay, silent D. So James Louis Gouchard, when he went and crossed the border into Canada, January of 1941.
Most people, when you think crossing the border, they're trying to get out of going to war, or getting drafted, that kind of thing.
He was
to join,
right.
He says a lot in and of itself.
Exactly. He said, he saw what was coming. He saw the growing tide of fascism, and he saw that this is something that he had to be involved in, and so that takes an extra special level of dedication. To go do that, and so, gosh, that's amazing in and of itself.
So yes, they, my great uncle chose to get into the war. He wanted, was willing to die for our country at a time that we really didn't have, skin in the game at that time, and they were actually recruiting. I learned that the Canadian Air Force was actually putting up flyers and things, trying to recruit young men. He went and basically, was rebellious, and instead of running away, ran toward the fight.
Right.
And two Americans were on that flight. It was, 3 Americans. It was 3 Englishmen, 2 Canadians, and 3 Americans.
And the bomber that he was on was a Royal Canadian Air Force bomber?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Royal Canadian Air Force and Avro Lancaster.
Right.
Do they have an idea of where it went down or a vicinity? Have they located that yet, or is it?
Yes, the amazing part is another one of the members of the group feels as if they have located it exactly from flight records. One of them was a pilot in the military not too long ago, and the other brother actually flew commercial airlines. So they had access to some of the airline records and things, and we actually have a spot pinpointed.
And you did they did some historical records research and found details from the German pilot that apparently took credit for shooting down the bomber.
Yes, they're pretty confident. They've also identified that person. That was the Ernest Heeson is his name. He reported taking them down. And basically, the correlation of the claims and the missing crew, we found out in 2013.
Wow. And you just found out
over the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah. In the North Sea is where they in the North Sea. And you only just found out about this less than 2 months ago.
Less than 2 months ago, yes.
Wow.
My grandfather, who was my Uncle James' brother.
Okay.
My grandfather, when he was close to passing away, talked about flying aircraft in World War II. And my father and I kind of shook our heads like there's no way. He did serve, but he didn't fly airplanes. And so now, looking back, putting the whole story together, we pieced together that he was talking about his brother.
Now, your great-uncle, he is recognized at the Trenton War Memorial, correct?
Yes, sir. They recognized him in the Trenton War Memorial. And I just recently, actually last Saturday, visited there, and we'll be going down again this Saturday for the Memorial Day Parade. With another one of the family members of the crew, and we will both be representing our families in the Memorial Day Parade in Trenton. So
that is awesome.
Recognized in Trenton. They are also recognized in England.
Yeah.
There is a memorial in England as well with all of the members.
And from what I understand, later this year, hopefully there's going to be an expedition put together or an effort to try and pinpoint the exact crash site?
Yes, sir. We are hoping to, we have an extensive amount of research, and we're hoping to get some of the POW or MIA type of things, because that's the controversial part.
Yeah.
Since the missing Americans are not really listed, although they were U.S. citizens, since they were not U.S. service members, Project Recover is less likely to help us. But we're looking for, any kind of help we can get to hopefully bring whatever lies down at the bottom of the ocean there, because we believe that we know exactly where it is. It's about 90 feet below the surface. And if we could bring any of that up, that just is more evidence.
Well, and as you said, even to specifically designate that as a war grave, to prevent potentially, people to dive on that and take souvenirs, that kind of thing. But to specifically make sure that that's legally protected spot.
Right.
Absolutely. And there was also, as far as the controversial part about them, going over the border, there was a presidential pardon at one point that forgave any soldiers that did that type of thing. So as far as the United States, recognizing that, more as an act of courage as opposed to an act of defiance.
Right.
That occurred as well. So, yes, the plan is to one member at least of each family will be going over to England to the cemetery there and celebrating a memorial ceremony honoring them on November 25th of 2022, which will be the 80th anniversary of the loss of the crew in the aircraft.
And do you plan to go to the ceremony?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's going to be quite impactful, I can imagine.
Emotionally, too.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, just a fascinating story. And, if there's new developments and as this progresses, keep us posted, and maybe we'll have you back on again.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love that, and I appreciate you taking the time to honor my great-uncle Gushar and get the story out so that other veterans organizations may hear about it, or people that may want to help us with the history or may have some missing pieces that we're still trying to put together.
Yeah, James Louis Gushar, American hero, and thank you, Michelle Spisz. Thank you for sharing this story with us.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a great day.
You too.
You should do the same. All right, Michelle, what an interesting story.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff, and I'm sure more's going to turn up, but you imagine sending the dive team down to find this aircraft and whatever's left.
It'll be
inside. Just interesting.
Having watched some of these, where there've been shows on TV, documentaries where they go to these various places where planes have crashed from World War II specifically even. And a lot of times they'll just make a decision to say, we're just going to leave this as is. But to give positive ID, I mean, you do want to provide some closure to make sure, even though obviously at this late date, 80 years later, no one's doubting that these men weren't lost. But it's still to provide some closure and put an end to that. But the story as well, though, I mean, it's such a compelling story. So yeah, really fascinating.
And some good things can happen on Facebook too, where people are connecting on those types of things as opposed
Facebook,
to TikTok.
Good.
Stuff.
What are you talking about? Oh wait, this video's on Facebook. Anyway.